So I've got myself a pretty fun challenge for today's episode. I'm going to be trying to give you guys 5 names at the running back position in fantasy football for week 4 that I think have the chance to let us down here. These are players that I'm avoiding the need to start, and I'm looking for better options here as we approach these week 4 important lineup decisions. So if you're new around here, of course, smash that like button and click the subscribe button, turn the bell on as well, so you're never late for a new piece of content. We're posting fantasy football videos every single day of the week here on YouTube and in various other platforms that you can find in the description of today's video. So as always, I encourage you to leave me your lineup advice and questions down below in the comment section, and let's get started. All right, here we go. So before we dive into our first must sit of the week, I do want to chat through our picks from last week, give you guys our breakdowns and how things went. So in our must sit running back segment, we were above 50% this week at 60% overall, going 3 of 5. Our 2 misses from last week's games were Breece Hall, who actually took a really positive step forward. I'm excited for him. And for the first time, it's the smallest margin of victory in terms of running back snap count percentage shares, but a 51-49 split over Michael Carter. And where he really made his money here, the number we look to stay below is 10 points in half PPR scoring. We're looking for guys that aren't putting up good floor games. Of course, there's always the chance for these players to boom, but they're talented NFL athletes. But Breece in this matchup had 11 targets. And when you're getting 11 targets, you're going to catch a lot of footballs. He was able to rack up that receiving yardage and get those plays as well. He also dropped a really big touchdown. So this could have been a lot better for Breece Hall in terms of me being a lot more wrong. It looks like he's starting to take over that backfield, which is something we've been advocating for buying low on him in other videos. So feeling pretty good about that one there, despite it being a miss. And then Devin Singletary, someone that I am not high on the rest of the season. This was just a flat miss on my part. Only managed 13 rushing yards. That's correct, 13 rushing yards, but ended up, again, having 11 targets and a heavy role in the receiving game. Ended up catching a 2-yard touchdown reception. So that's kind of your backbreaker. For the running back position, if they score a touchdown, you're kind of out of luck for these must-sit picks. So not something I like to roll the dice on, though, because, in a sense, if you think about it from that perspective, if you're looking for players, this is what I try to do in the must starts video. I apologize for going a little bit more in depth here for those of you that just straight up don't care, just skip ahead of 30 seconds or so. But what we try to do is find players in those must start episodes that can find production without scoring a touchdown. Guys that I think have really good use cases to be viable with or without that 6-point play coming on top of their other fantasy totals. So for these videos, what I try to do is find guys that I think that without that touchdown really struggle. So Damien Harris being one of those players this week. Things look grim for Damien Harris. I know a lot of you don't want to hear it. I know there's a lot of die-hard Damien Harris owners out there. I don't know if you're just a Pats fan. I don't know if you just really like standard fantasy football, or maybe you're a Crimson Tide fan that loved watching him back in the day. But for Damien Harris here, I'm sorry. The numbers do not lie, and things are starting to get worse and worse. And unfortunately for Damien, while he's been able to prove me wrong to this point in the season, scoring rushing touchdowns, the offense, which was already piss poor, has gotten a lot worse. You've got a situation where you are a 40% or lower running back in terms of your accounting for snap count percentage of that backfield. 40% or lower every week. That is not cutting it. I don't want to be told that if I'm flipping a coin and playing a 50-50 game here between heads or tails, you're in the lineup or you're on the bench, it's 10% lower than that number. Ugh. I'm staying away here. You've got Ramondre Stevenson, his backfield mate, 62% of the snap share or higher the last 2 weeks here. Actually, it's been 62% on the head the last 2 weeks. And additionally, the thing that concerns me is the rushing attempts. Ramondre Stevenson has been more efficient. He has been the more productive player with the touches given. He's the more involved receiving back as well for this team. We'll talk about that and come back to it in just a second. The other part of this is Stevenson scored his first touchdown of the year this past week. If they start giving a 50-50 split here on the goal line and the few and far between opportunities they get there, that receiving involvement makes Stevenson the more worthwhile back to have on your fantasy rosters. So, Damien Harris, what changed that makes me like him less here than I already did? I was already a Damien Harris hater. I'll fine with that label if you want to toss it on me. Like him as a player. He's a fun guy. One time in a Madden franchise, I got him to a 95 overall running back. But besides the point, Brian Hoyer is expected to be the starting quarterback this week. Either him or Bailey Zappi. You're either getting one of these 2 players because Mac Jones is not going to be available. Sustained a severe high ankle sprain on the last play of the game against who did the Pats have this week? The Baltimore Ravens. And with that, losing your signal caller on an undermanned offense, a very under-talented roster, moving the football is going to be very tough to do. You're playing a Packers team this week that's 10-point favorites against you, so the Pats being 10-point dogs. The game script looks like it could get severely out of hand. So if you can't move the football, if you can't get into a legitimate situation where you have goal line reps to split between these two players and you're trailing big in this game, we know, based off the numbers I just told you, especially Ramondre Stevenson being the higher percentage player in terms of his playing time, in addition to the fact that he's more involved in the receiving game, if they're down late, a veteran backup quarterback is checking the football down to Stevenson, that pushes his value upward, whereas Harris, who isn't getting that same level of receiving involvement, his value trends downward because early in this game, he's going to have to rip some big runs here. He's going to have to be very efficient, but if Green Bay has any intelligence here on their coaching staff, they're going to try and stop the run and make Brian Hoyer beat them. So the game script is a total disaster for me here for Damien Harris. I'm not confident that he puts up any respectable numbers without getting a goal line carry, and I think the chances of getting quality looks inside the 5-yard line this week are pretty grim when you consider the matchup and circumstances their offense is currently in. Cam Akers, another running back that I'm going to kind of slam the door on here this week. I hate this matchup for the Los Angeles Rams. I forget how many times in a row it was that Kyle Shanahan, up until the NFC Championship game last year, had beaten Sean McVay, but I think it was like 6 or 7 times that he had beat him consecutively. The reasoning for that is the San Francisco 49ers are straight up, plain and simple, a more physical football team. They are going to punch this soft Rams team in the face, which has had they've won 2 games here, but there is a fatal flaw somewhere in this offense. There is something catastrophic going on behind the scenes. They need to fix it. There is a kink missing in the system here. There's a cog in the system. That's the phrase. There's something wrong. And for this Rams rushing attack, last week we saw Cam Akers have arguably his best rushing performance since 2020 when he was a rookie, average over 5 yards per carry, which feels like the first time in forever here. I don't trust that to continue this week. I think that you're going to get his yards per rush dropping down into somewhere in the 3 yards per carry marker. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 3.5 yards per touch. He scored a touchdown this past week, also lost a fumble. Maybe that makes Sean McVay pull back his willingness to use him a bit more. Whatever the situation may be, whether it's matchup, his obviously mess up blunder of a fumble, whatever you want to call that. Coaches hate that stuff. And for Cam Akers, who just seemed like he got out of the doghouse, that worries me a little bit. So for this matchup, the culmination of just trust issues that have already been baked into our brains here with this Rams backfield, especially Cam Akers, I'm not trusting him in this matchup in particular. I don't think, obviously, we've seen their offensive line deteriorate from last offseason to now. I don't think they can hold with San Francisco's front 7. I think this game is won by the 49ers in convincing fashion. I think the Rams struggle to run the football. And, of course, Cam Akers is not some super dynamic receiving back, so that is a bad news situation for him here. Michael Carter, we talked some Breece Hall in our other video here, but in the must-starts video, he was not on that list, but go check out what we talked about for him. Michael Carter is someone that I have fading down my rankings here, and I'm essentially willing to take out of my lineups now. In PPR formats, I think it was acceptable up until last week to continue playing him, but once we saw the second 9+ target game from Breece Hall and that he's really the factor on third down passing situations, I'm out on Michael Carter now. You can't convince me that he's going to sustain value and continue to be a productive lineup play when he's not getting the reps at the thing I thought he did best. Now, he still owns the rushing opportunities for this team, but you've got a player here who, even if they get down to the goal line, I don't think gets the nod for the rushing touchdown in that situation. So for me, if you're not getting the passes, you're not getting the goal line work, what are you really good for here? You're going to have to be super efficient on the ground, put up monster yardage on 10, 11, 12 touches here. And this match against Pittsburgh here, despite the fact that Nick Chubb ran all over them last week, I think that you're going to see basically a 50-50 split. We saw a 51-49 split in favor of Breece Hall last week. I'm not ready to start Breece Hall yet, but I am ready to sit Michael Carter. That starts here. And again, Zach Wilson might resist to throw the football to running backs out of the backfield more so than Joe Flacco did willingly. that will also hurt both of these players in a sense and to an extent here until he grows into that phase of the game. We did see Michael Carter's numbers in the passing game dip with Zach Wilson as compared to other quarterbacks like Mike White last year with this Jets offense. So for me, again, staying away from both players this week. I do think it is possible one of them finds success. My bet would be Breece Hall, just with him being the larger, more physical athlete and being the player that I think can go out there. We've seen him get the receiving involvement where coaches want him on the field. And again, he is a larger back that I think gets the goal line nod if they find themselves in that situation. Clyde Edwards-Helaire against Tampa Bay here. I'm sitting him this week. Had him as a start last week. It worked out. He scored a touchdown. It had some nice receiving involvement. Caught all 5 of his reception opportunities, his targets rather, out of the backfield for 39 yards. Again, Andy Reid loves this dude in the scripted portion of the team's offensive approach each week. So maybe he goes nuts again and does something in the first drive of the game, scores a touchdown, and just completely wipes this take off the face of the earth. However, what we saw last week, 7 carries, 0 yards. He's not contributing on the ground. This team is still not interested in running the football. Even after years and years of seeing kind of the downside of not having this at your disposal, I do think CEH is a talented player. I do think in full PPR formats he could catch enough passes to offset this. But we saw a Tampa Bay Bucs defense totally shut down A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones last week. They understand and just game plan for a team that was very predicated on stopping playmaking running backs out of the backfield and limiting their role in that contest. So Clyde's not going to be the focal point of the game plan for Todd Bowles' defense this week, but this defense can fly. They can cover ground very quickly. I don't think Clyde really presents a mismatch at any place on the field for this offense, and Patty's going to have to straight up make a very tight window throw to him downfield or something to get him a advantageous spot to score a touchdown in the back corner of the end zone or something like that. So not expecting too much from Clyde here. I'm going to be very pessimistic on him heading into this week's game. I think there's another chance we see very underwhelming rushing production for him. Now, we have seen games in the past. I believe it was the end of the Super Bowl, Tampa against the Buccaneers. Wow, nice one. Tampa against the Chiefs, where late in the game or in the second half of that Super Bowl, when the Bucs were just kind of pinning their ears back and looking to pass rush, Clyde gashed him on the ground a little bit, but I don't think they're going to get in that type of a situation here. Just with the amount of times these teams have played each other. I believe it's 3 now, at least. They've got a pretty good feel for one another. This is not a team that I expect wants to run the football with Clyde. That's just not something we've seen him be super successful with at this point in the season and just consistently at a workhorse level. So with the playmakers and the personnel that Tampa's defense has, combined with the fact that I think that Tampa's just seen very dynamic running backs literally last week in the game they lost. They'll be making tweaks, fixes, and I think Tampa might have a lot of success against this Kansas City offense here. And then finally, J.K. Dobbins here against the Buffalo Bills. I think he's still getting worked into this offense. I'm not ready to pull the trigger and start him yet. It's just not something I'm comfortable doing. Only had a 43% snap share last week. Less than 50% is a red flag for me. And really, I can't expect much else from him. I'm just telling you guys here, my caution, my pullback here, and my explanation for concern. J.K. Dobbins is a really talented, really explosive player. There was spurts and moments where it looked like he was going to rip a big run and do something really exciting. But again, still being worked into the offense. They're still trying to shake the dust off, get him comfortable and confident playing football again. 9 total touches this past week here. And this Buffalo defense is really buttoned up. They're really solid. They're not in the business of letting big plays happen. So I'm interested to see where the Ravens attack this Bills offense, defensive unit from. I'm interested to see if they're able to have more success running Lamar Jackson, passing the ball downfield. I think it'll be a tough game. You've got a Bills team coming in with a chip on their shoulder after losing to Miami last week. So should be an interesting one. JK will be on my bench, though. Not willing to roll the dice on him here. And would prefer to go with a better option, more functional in their offense at this point in time. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you stopping in here. Again, let me know your questions down in the comment section below. As always, like, subscribe, comment, follow our social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all that great stuff, and I'll see you in a future episode. Go check out the community Discord as well. The invite's in the description of today's video, as is everything you could ever need here from SFS. So see you guys in the next video. Peace out.